On a bitterly cold morning on December 4th, 2005, a lone dog walker scanning the shoreline noticed something unusual on a deserted beach about a mile from Prestwick Airport, 32 miles southwest of Glasgow in Scotland. A figure lay motionless where the tide met the sand. A woman, face down, her long hair tangled by the water. A few feet away, her jacket and bag sat undisturbed on the empty beach. Police were called. The scene was quickly sealed off, the body removed without delay. Within hours, the death was formally ruled as self-inflicted drowning, swift, tidy, and to some, unsettlingly final. Authorities identified the body as Annie Christina Borjesson. Surveillance cameras captured her last known movements alive in Prestwick Airport the day before. That was the last time she was ever seen alive. Nearly 20 years later, her family still don't believe what police say happened, and are still searching for answers. Annie Borjesson's case is one of the most mysterious and debated deaths in recent UK cold case discussions, blending established facts, ongoing family concerns, and unresolved questions, amongst which the most important is, how did a young Swedish woman vanish from an airport and end up dead on a beach? What hidden truth lies at the heart of Annie's disappearance? Annie Christina Borjesson, a 30-year-old woman from Sweden, had lived in her home country all her life until she moved to Scotland's historic capital Edinburgh in 2004 to study English and work in hospitality. Annie spoke 6 languages fluently and had a beautiful singing voice. Back home in Sweden, she had even formed a band with her brothers and sisters. Her friends knew her as endlessly chatty, warm, and full of life, someone who could light up any room she walked into. Her best friend Maria described her as a woman whose strength matched the sweep of her long, blonde hair. Her appearance evoked the look of a typical Viking woman. According to Maria, Annie lived like a spotlight followed her everywhere and had a taste for the extravagant, but at the same time she had a soft and naive side, which could make her vulnerable. When Annie arrived in Edinburgh, she enrolled in English classes and eventually went on to work at a popular tourist hotspot. In December 2005, Annie decided to surprise her family by going back home for the Christmas holidays. She made plans to meet her friends, even booked a hairdresser appointment, took her library books with her, and paid a full month's rent on her apartment in Edinburgh. The plan was simple: enjoy Christmas at home, then return to the Scottish capital, settle back in, and find a permanent job. This trip was a pause, not an ending. So, what really became of Annie? Let's go back to her last sighting. It was Saturday, December 3rd, 2005. Annie left her flat carrying a packed travel bag and began the roughly 1.5-hour journey to Prestwick Airport in Glasgow. According to bank records, Annie made 2 attempts to take out money from an ATM at Glasgow Central Station. She initially tried to withdraw £100, followed by a second attempt for £50. Both transactions were declined due to insufficient funds in her account. Annie had her passport with her, but she did not have a plane ticket. It was not unusual for Annie to go to the airport without a ticket, as she would plan on buying a discounted ticket last minute as the flight was never fully booked. She apparently had done the same thing other times when flying home. CCTV footage showed her arriving at Prestwick Airport at around 3:15 p.m. Security cameras captured Annie's face, which looked anxious, almost scared. During an interview, her family remarked that this was quite unusual, as she was known for her ever-present, infectious smile. Annie stepped inside the terminal as if she had a clear destination in mind. Yet, only minutes later, she turned and walked back out, heading instead toward the airport car park. After that, no further confirmed sightings until her tragic body's discovery. Annie's body was found on Prestwick Beach, which is situated just near Glasgow Prestwick Airport, with the coastline being less than 1 mile away from the airport terminal, often reachable within a 5-minute drive or a short walk. When Annie's body was found, local police appeared to form an early view of the case, even before the post-mortem examination had been carried out. Investigators moved quickly to the conclusion that she had drowned herself on purpose, stating there were no suspicious circumstances or signs of foul play. The family was informed of this assessment later the same evening. Case closed. According to Annie's family, authorities did not deploy a specialist forensic unit to examine the scene, and there were no door-to-door inquiries carried out in the surrounding area. Key forensic steps appeared to be overlooked too. Fibres were not taken from her clothing for analysis. No water samples were collected to support a potential diatom test. No swabs were obtained from the section of seawall nearest to where her body was found. And no expert scientific evidence was secured to determine whether tidal movements could have carried Annie's body to that location. The Ayrshire Post was a weekly Scottish newspaper reporting local news to the communities. On the very day of the body's discovery, police informed journalists there was nothing suspicious about the young Swedish woman's death, even though the post-mortem had yet to reveal the truth. Further investigation confirmed that the paper covered Annie's death whilst a post-mortem on her body was being conducted in the mortuary of Ayr Hospital. This makes you wonder, how could local police confirm the circumstances around this tragic discovery, even before the post-mortem had been fully carried out? 2 autopsies were conducted on Annie's body, which was initially transported to London, prepared for repatriation, and flown back to Sweden on December 16th. Disturbing details began to emerge only after Annie's body was returned to Sweden for the second autopsy. The original Scottish report had claimed there were no visible injuries, no bruises, no marks, nothing to raise suspicion. Undertakers in Sweden were taken aback when they opened Annie's coffin, discovering large, palm-sized bruises on her right arm and side, along with additional bruising behind her right ear. One of the undertakers vividly recalled the moment they saw Annie's deceased body. It was unlike anything she had ever seen before. When the coffin was opened, her eyes were drawn straight to Annie's neck. There, clearly visible, were what looked like finger marks, 2 distinct impressions she said she would never forget. Further examination deepened the mystery. Laboratory tests revealed the presence of navicular lanceolata, a diatom typically found in fresh water, not seawater. If Annie had drowned in the sea, what was it doing in her system? Despite these troubling findings, Scottish police remained firm in their stance. They repeatedly insisted there was no evidence of foul play, and maintained that no crime had been committed. They also declined to share Annie's autopsy photographs with her family, stating there was no public interest in releasing them, and expressing concern that the images might cause unnecessary distress. The undertakers maintained that the marks, far more extensive than anything documented in the autopsy report, could not be explained by post-mortem lividity, stating that they were confident in their ability to distinguish between true bruising and normal discoloration on a body. The stark discrepancy between what the undertakers reported and what was recorded in the first autopsy findings deeply unsettled the Borjesson family. The family were also alarmed to find out about the more widespread bruising that had not been noted in the first post-mortem report 9 days earlier, though this was later attributed to the possibility that bruising can appear between 8 and 10 days after death. Further investigations were carried out. Expert opinions diverged, with pathologists and marine specialists reaching different conclusions. A further examination of tissue and bone marrow samples led to an unexpected finding. Rather than confirming that Annie had drowned, the results appeared to raise fresh doubts about the original post-mortem conclusion. As mentioned, the presence of navicular lanceolata, a freshwater diatom found in Annie's system, complicated the picture even further. If Annie didn't lose her life to the sea, then where did she truly drown? Some experts also claimed that the bruises on Annie's body usually occur when someone has blunt trauma when they are still alive, so such bruises could have only been caused before Annie had drowned. In an interview, Annie's mother, Yuya, said that her daughter was athletic and a strong swimmer, so it was a strange way to end her life. The thought of entering the freezing water in the middle of winter was unimaginable. However, swimming in freshwater lakes is popular in Scandinavia, so perhaps not so out of the question for a young and strong Swedish girl who was known for being bold and adventurous. Not much is known about what happened to Annie the day before her tragic death. A key witness later came forward with a striking account from the afternoon of Saturday, December the 3rd. At around 4:30 p.m, Andrew Montgomery, a local, was walking along Prestwick Promenade with a visiting friend when they noticed a lone figure roughly 150 yards away at the water's edge during low tide. The person stood completely still, appearing to stare out to sea. After continuing to the end of the promenade and turning back, the men were unsettled to see that around 20 minutes later, the figure had not moved. The beach was otherwise empty, apart from a loose dog nearby, prompting the two friends to wonder if the individual might be contemplating taking their own life. They did not intervene at the time, but the following morning, after seeing the area cordoned off by police, Andrew realised the potential significance of what they had witnessed and reported it. The police knew there were two key witnesses. Andrew Montgomery was interviewed, but they never attempted to reach his friend Doug. Their reasoning? That neither witness could confirm the figure was a woman. But this logic is hard for us to follow. If anything, I think a second witness is more reason to investigate further, not less. It's a decision that raises serious questions about the thoroughness of the investigation. Annie's mother Yuya flew to Scotland to meet Andrew, and once again was disappointed by how little the police did to investigate further. Even after all of this, there were still more unanswered questions being added to an ever-growing list. For example, how did Annie's jacket and bag end up in exactly the same location if she had drowned? And why did she suddenly leave the airport? Was she trying to escape from something or someone? Was she being monitored? Or did she just step out to get some air? Her family claimed police initially suggested she may have been looking for a cash machine, but the fact is there were only parking ticket machines and no cash machines to be found. Annie's mother later confirmed this herself when she scoped out the airport during her visit. Her family wondered, and still do, if Annie had arranged to meet someone in the car park, perhaps a passenger arriving or departing, someone local, or someone who never turned up. The last time she spoke to her mother, Annie mentioned she had to take care of something and was calling from a different phone, almost as if she was afraid of being heard. Other unexplained details add further layers to this mystery. It seemed Annie's emails had been wiped out. Did she do it or someone else? Even more puzzling, 2 phone calls from her call history were later found to have been erased. Annie's case drew considerable attention via multiple media projects, including an award-winning podcast, journalist articles, and documentaries. A range of theories emerged, leaving public opinion increasingly polarized. Did Annie really take her own life? Annie was a vibrant, bubbly person with a real zest for life. She had future plans, hoping to return to Edinburgh and settle into a stable, permanent job. But in the weeks leading up to everything, something seemed to have changed. She began acting differently, more withdrawn, quieter than usual. There were signs she may have been struggling with depression, and at times, even paranoia. Annie didn't have a wide circle of friends, and she often kept her thoughts and worries to herself. It makes you wonder, what was she going through behind the scenes? What could have led her to such a heartbreaking and drastic state of mind? Having said that, Annie had no proven history of mental illness and no evident reason to take her own life. Was it a case of mistaken identity? Some theories suggest there may have been a far more sinister angle. One claim that surfaced was the idea that Annie could have been mistaken for a journalist investigating sensitive CIA topics, someone by the name of Christina Borjesson. Annie's full name was Annie Christina Borjesson, so the similarity is obvious. However, this theory quickly begins to fall apart under closer scrutiny. The journalist herself stated she had never been to Scotland, only having written about related topics from afar. There's also no concrete evidence linking Annie to any kind of intelligence activity or investigation. Others have pointed to the location, Prestwick Airport, often described as strategically significant, as a reason for suspicion, suggesting the possibility of intelligence involvement. Glasgow Prestwick Airport has played an important strategic role as a stopover and refueling point for US military aircraft travelling between North America, Europe, and the Middle East. Its location on the North Atlantic route has resulted in thousands of stopovers by US Air Force, Navy, and Marine aircraft. But again, these claims remain purely speculative, with nothing substantial to support them. In the end, it seems far more likely that these ideas stem from conspiracy theories or simple cases of mistaken identity, rather than any real connection to covert operations. Was there a mysterious man behind the scenes? Annie had a real passion for rugby and spent a lot of time at her local rugby club. According to her best friend Maria, that's where Annie met her mysterious man in the summer of 2005. At first, they seemed to get along well, but things quickly took a strange turn. Annie began to suspect that he wasn't who he claimed to be. She believed he had been using the name of a well-known rugby player from New Zealand, raising serious questions about his identity. Not long after, Annie's behaviour started to change. She seemed anxious, even frightened. On one occasion, when the man showed up again, he reportedly gave her a cold, unsettling look, something that visibly shook her. Around this time, Annie confided in her family that she felt like she was being watched. She even warned them not to call her phone, fearing someone might be listening in. It was a deeply unsettling shift, and one that only added to the growing mystery surrounding her final days. Was it foul play or the results of an unfortunate accident? Police did confirm that DNA was found on Annie. However, investigators concluded it was unlikely to have come from direct physical contact, suggesting instead that she may have picked it up from a surface, like a handrail. But this raised even more questions. If the DNA belonged to someone who had never been recorded in a police database, it would be almost impossible to identify them. Annie's family later pushed for the DNA to be re-examined, hoping advances in technology might provide answers. The Crown Office declined their request. Adding to the confusion, there were claims of a document indicating that the DNA may have belonged to an unknown woman, something the family says they were never properly informed about. It's a detail that continues to fuel doubt and frustration, leaving many to question whether more could have been done. The case was officially closed, but the conclusion that Annie had purposefully drowned herself was completely unacceptable to her family, as were the many question marks that loomed over the case. They attempted to reopen the case with the help of the media, with Annie's mother making her concerns public and her voice heard. Despite significant efforts to seek further investigation, including involvement from Alex Salmond, the leader of the Scottish government at the time, as well as a 3,000 signature petition to the Scottish Parliament and ongoing campaigning by her family and friends, authorities consistently refused to reopen the case, declaring that the documents were classified and secret. Crown Office, Scotland's independent public prosecution service and death investigation authority, declared the investigation as inconclusive. Some believe further evidence could still clarify the case, but this remains inaccessible due to classification, redactions, and withheld documentation. Maria, Annie's friend, said in an interview that 18 years is an inhumanly long time for Annie's loved ones to wait for answers, adding, "We would never have put ourselves through this nightmare if we all did not strongly believe that Annie was murdered." Over 2 decades later, the questions that surround her death remain unanswered, buried beneath classified documents and a closed file. Whether Annie was the author of her own end, or whether other forces were at work, still remains a mystery. But the people who loved her have never stopped asking. They're still fighting, still refusing to let the truth be swallowed by silence. Annie deserves better. Until the full truth is known, her story will not end here.